getting a sense of what true happiness is like. And like I said, the way of Dhamma and the way of the world, it sometimes goes in the opposite direction. Because the world tells you to go for more stuff, having more things, having more experience, going to see places, going some things, have more extreme experiences. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. So tonight is the full moon night. So we'll see what happens. But usually we practice a bit later into the night. And it's always about testing what we think are the limits of what is possible with the body and mind. Pushing the boundary just a little bit, just to see what's it like. And so much of the practice in Buddhism is about, putting the teachings, the theory into practice and see what it feels like. Sometimes you can say, there's so much of the practice seems a bit paradoxical. Seems a bit contradictory. I remember a young man came to the monastery and said, this is a very strange place. You guys get up in some godly hours of 3:30, and I'm supposed to be in the cell at 4. I mean, that's when I go to sleep. Then you may get me to the cell at 4 o'clock, and then you turn off the light, and then you tell me to stay awake. It's like, how does that work? It's ridiculous. So much of the practice, unless we do it, when you think about it, it can be a bit confusing, be a bit illogical at times. But so much of it is just having the faith, the confidence, the open-mindedness, just to put it into practice. Because so much of the Dhamma practice is against the worldly way of doing things. We're told, from a very, very young age, that the more you have, the happier you'll be. The more you get what you want, the happier things, that you'll be, more at ease. And then you go and you encounter the Buddhist teaching. It's all about restraint, doing with little. And you're like, how is that supposed to make me happy? I want to get more stuff. I want to get, that's why I came to the monastery. I want to be happy, more happier than I am as a lay person. And it's only through putting into practice of having sense restraint, trying out, trying to get by with little, do you find that it's not the same type of happiness, obviously, as going to a party or going to a nice holiday. But the happiness, the sense of well-being from peace, from stillness, from living a simple life, once you get the hang of it, it does surpasses anything in the world. That's why you see people coming to the monastery. You see people, out of faith, give it a try. Who else, on an Easter holiday, Instead of going to a nice luxury cruise or going to Queensland, the Gold Coast, you come to a monastery and you gotta get up at 4 o'clock and start sitting and walking meditation. You're like, oh, it's really good, it's great, I can do this. Most people on their holiday wants to sleep in, right? Lounge around in bed till about noon, get up, order room service. Oh, this is the life. This is happiness. But that's where you need to have awareness and put into practice. And you have the clarity of keep asking yourself, is this happiness? Is the luxury cruise happiness? Is the Gold Coast happiness? I think once you know the Dhamma, you're like, no way. You can't pay me to go on these cruises. Getting stuck in a tiny room with hundreds of other people, getting in line for everything, being in these noisy places. Like, you gotta be kidding. People pay for this? But it takes some confidence, takes, trying things out. It also takes getting a sense of what true happiness is like. And like I said, the way of Dhamma and the way of the world, it sometimes goes in the opposite direction. Because the world tells you to go for more stuff, having more things, having more experience, going to see places, going some things, have more extreme experiences. Huge high, emotional high, jumping off cliffs to get your adrenaline going. That way you can remember things. We live in such a high impact experienced world that unless something is dramatic, we tend not to remember it. So as a result, people are looking for more and more extreme things to do as time goes by. And seeking for the next high, seeking for the next exciting thing can be quite tiring. So that's what people do. You see people, walking around feeling quite tired, quite worn out, quite depleted. Because we do live in a world that moves very quickly. That's always chasing after the next big thing. Whether, iPhones are not so big anymore, but the next thing, whatever that is. These days, I know what people are chasing after, but the next shiny thing to get excited about. It could be a new house, the usual stuff, a new job, new relationship, new babies, whatever it is that we're always chasing around. It's the chasing, it's the wanting that the Buddha said, that's where suffering comes from. So in the Dhamma practice, we're encouraged just to really look the other way, look inward. Try to get a better feel for what's it like, for slowing down, for stillness, for non-moving. To see the happiness, to see the sense of well-being that comes from not having to have things, not having to look after things. I remember I was in Wat Pananachat, and I guess, you can put these things into more perspective, because about 25 years ago, obviously, Wat Pananachat in Thailand can be very austere. So I think you only have hot drinks maybe a couple of times a week. It's not like it was in Ajahn Chah when it's once a month, but a couple of times a week, and you have this hot chocolate come up. And then one young monk was joking. He says, the happiness I get from not having this next cup of chocolate is supposed to be higher than having the chocolate, because it's supposed to be the happiness of sense restraint. But you know what? I'll just take the lower kind of happiness and have another cup. And it's tricky, because it's true. We're so trained, so geared for the easier sense of happiness. Instead of, doing without, it's so much easier to get the happiness from just having a bit more thing. And it's natural. We're so, part of it is wired. being comfortable. Sometimes you're laying in bed, oh, just one more hour be nice. One more hour of sleep will be good. And to some extent it's true. Yeah, it certainly feels that way. But as you train the mind and you're used to a certain routine, after a while you realize that, these things that people tell you that you have to have 8 hours of sleep, otherwise the body becomes sick or something, that is not true, that you can't get away with less. And also, like I said, Ajahn Chah always tells people, a lot of people think, sleep is a great pleasure. You lie in bed. He says, well, try that for 24 hours. People go, 1 hour is really good. Well, maybe why not 12 hours? See what it feels like. And it's true. Anything that's like maybe sounds good in theory, when you put it into practice, that's not the case. Pretty soon, you say 1 hour or 15 minutes is good, half an hour is great. But 4 hours later, most people, you're fed up. You want to get out of bed and do other things. And that's where, the tricks of the mind, just saying a little bit more of this, a little more of that, I'll be happy. But actually, that's not the case. And sometimes we're so attached to our sleep that someone told me that, actually the Buddha might have said 10 to 2 is when you should sleep. But he didn't say about not sleeping the rest of the time. Maybe, monks have long naps in the afternoon or something to make up for the 4 hours that they only sleep at night. Maybe they're napping most of the day. That's why the recommendation is only 4 hours at night. He didn't say about not having another 4 hours during the daytime. That's how we get our 8 hours in, I think. Maybe. Maybe not. But, looking at the room, seeing a lot of, kind of experienced meditators who have kind of have faith in putting the practice. It's good just to offer something that inspires, but also a focus, because we live in a society, an age that we have so much information, but actually, in terms of how much you really need to start the practice, how much you really need to finish the practice, it's not very much, literally. Everything that we have in this chanting book is really enough for you to realize the Dhamma, because so much of that the Buddha taught is in here. So it's not so much of it, it's knowing more, although that's a tendency of the mind to always look for new things, a new teacher, a new technique, a new book, to shed a different perspective on Dhamma. I think so much of it is just having the faith, the focus, just to continue with your practice day in and day out, and not fall for this kind of illusion or delusion that, my practice is not getting anywhere. But if I just have the right book, just read the right thing, go to a right retreat, then it will kickstart my practice. But so much of it, or maybe I'm just anti-intellectual, maybe I'm just being in the forest for too long. But I feel like, so much of the simile that I hear from a meditation master is true. And I say this over and over again. It's the practice anyway. It's like digging for water. There is water in the ground, but it's very, very deep. And sometimes you can dig for a long, long time and not feel that you're making any way. Sometimes in your digging, you hit hard rock, and it gets tiring, it gets hot, it gets tiring. And it doesn't look like you're getting much payment, much progress for the practice. And then sure, you can feel discouraged. And then instead of continue digging that one hole, some people go and they dig, find another place. Like maybe I'm digging in the wrong place. Maybe I should go dig at another place. Maybe I have a better luck there. So they find another hole and they start digging. And maybe at first, oh, it's soft ground. Okay, yeah, this is the right place. Soft ground, they dig a little bit. But then sometimes after a while, that soft ground turns hard again and they get stuck. They go find another place to dig. They can continue doing this for a long, long time, and they don't find any water. So they say, no, there's no water in the ground. Whoever told me there's water is crazy. Maybe there was water in the ground, but because of climate changes, there's no more water. And that's just that's just the way it is. We have to wait for the next Buddha to come along to put some water in the ground, then we can dig for the water. But actually, sometimes a man or woman comes along, and he or she has faith, is patient, has focus, has all the spiritual qualities that it takes. He or she just stays in one hole and dig patiently, slowly, steadily. When they get tired, they have a rest for a while to re-nourish themselves, re-energize, and they dig again. And then they dig, and sometimes they hit hard ground. But they have faith, they have steadiness, they have focus, they have the confidence that there is water in the ground, and they're not going to be swayed from their project, not to sway from their goal. They keep digging, and still no water. And everybody's telling you, you're wasting your time. You should come with us and dig in the other place. This other place is much more interesting. Earth is soft. And then, and all your friends are on the other side. You should go where your friends are. But they know they hold fast. They dig in the same hole. And after many, many years, they finally hit water. And they said, see, I knew there's water. But all it takes, it's the faith, the confidence, the steadiness, just to continue one day at a time. To find ways to keep your energy up, find ways to inspire yourself, find ways to maintain the focus, which is sometimes is not easy. We live in a world that is changing fast, that likes fast, quick results. If you don't get it, you must be doing the wrong thing, or there's a better way to do it. But in the Dhamma practice, I see that. It is just the steadiness of a day to day, watching the breath over and over again, losing the breath, and just coming back. One time, one breath at a time, 1 minute at a time, over and over again. And it is through the practice that you learn to find ways to inspire yourself. You learn to be gentle to yourself. There's so much of the path about letting go, to discard all the ideas and goals that you might have about where you should be, or how you should be, and how you compare to the other person. You let go of all that. You just, you look for the happiness that is within. You look for the happiness that are attainable in the present moment. You look for the good things in life. Like, yes, okay, my mind may not be so settled, not so focused, maybe not so peaceful, but you know what? I'm in the monastery, I'm with good people, getting fed, I have lots of time to practice, even though my practice doesn't seem like it's going anywhere, but at least I'm putting forth the effort. I'm walking the path of the Buddha. And that must count for something. And that is enough. Just be able to be on the path, to be able to practice the Buddha's teaching of harmlessness, of sila, of samadhi. And panya will come when the conditions are right. So much of the practice for experienced meditator is to maintain the consistency. It's to maintain the faith and shedding the ideas, the opinions, the goals that we might have as we start out the path, and where we should be, and also to be kind and gentle to ourselves, not judge us for not making enough progress. Oh, you hear this a lot. I've been doing this for 20 years, and I still get angry. I don't want to be angry anymore. I want to love everybody. But, so much of the practice is being realistic. It's accepting what is in the present moment. You have to work with it in a way that's productive and effective. So sometimes, we talk about what the practice is. I think practice is different for different people. And for each and every one of us to try the method that yields results for us. To pace ourselves in a way that is possible. And to always have the openness just to try different practices from time to time. See how that works. But then someone said, well, say you're contradicting yourself. Yeah, Dhamma talks are full of contradictions all the time. You say you hold steadiness and then you say try new things. Yeah, that's where the practice comes in. You have to know when to focus, work what's doing, and then when it's not working. So there's no hard and fast rule that you follow. There are many great teachers out there, many great traditions, and your job is to find what works for yourself. And then once you do find that, is to continue pursuing the path. Continue putting in the work and the faith and the confidence that, it is yielding results. And usually it does. When you practice, you'll see, when the mind becomes more still, there is a great sense of joy and happiness that is beyond the worldly stuff. Some teachers say, just to get people more interested, to go in the way of the world. Some teachers offer, 5 precept retreat at a 5-star resort now. Because they say, well, you have people who are busy, you have people who are not used to waking up early and not used to not eating in the afternoon. So why don't we make it easier for them to come into the Dhamma, and we'll just hold our 10-day retreats at a 5-star luxury resort. And then people can at least have the taste of Dhamma. And from there, they can continue further. And that's the thing, that's a great thing about Buddhism. There's no written down, there's no strict thing. People might have views and opinions about what is the right Dhamma, how to teach. But I always tell people, it's an open market. Whatever works. If you offer a teaching and people find it useful, then they'll come back. And it's not for me to say, well, you're watering the Dhamma. I could be saying that, but nobody listens anyway. And after a while, you start to find out where your strengths and your weaknesses are. And you try to lean into your strength. Like I said, if you prefer to live in the forest, have a quiet time, then you can set up a place that's conducive to practice in that way. Some other people are more energetic, more social, and they want to bring the Dhamma to different places to go teach more, and that's also fine. As long as, we're all keeping the same rules, keeping the same precepts, and that's also, it's, there's no kind of like the Vatican that is handing down the rules. How do we spread the Dhamma? It is in this, an individual thing, and it's the same for the practice. Just to know, and to be honest and to be present. What works for you? What different practice works? Hopefully, always going towards the Dhamma. What stills your mind? What brings a sense of joy? True joy. So something you keep asking yourself, whatever it is you're doing in life, whether it's going on a luxury holiday, whether you're buying new things, or whether you're going on a 10-day retreat, keep asking, does this bring me happiness? Does this bring a sense of joy? Sometimes you do just need to go on a luxury holiday to know what this is like, feels like. And sometimes you get Buddhists like, oh, I'm supposed to be a good Buddhist, so I can't go on a luxury holiday. I have to go home and sit and watch my breath for 10 hours a day on my holiday. And that's supposed to be happiness. But sometimes you aren't getting the practice. Sometimes you're not getting the happiness. So sometimes it's good to admit that at this present moment, what the mind needs is a bit of happiness. There is always happiness that brings a still mind. As I always trying to tell people, in your meditation, in your posture, try to set up a posture, allow the body to be comfortable, and not to put unnecessary stress into the body by trying to get into a full lotus or half lotus, or have to sit on the ground without any cushion. Because you might hear some teachers says, this is the only way. You can't get into this posture, and then how samadhi is going to happen. But so much of training meditation is being present. Know the limits of your body and mind. If your body is in pain, on fire, feeling uncomfortable, it's highly unlikely that the mind will settle down. Sure, there are instances that if you have a lot of faith, you have a lot of barami, they say, and you sit in full lotus, and the body's on fire, the mind may enter samadhi if you have a lot of barami, if you have a lot of faith and confidence that this is the way. But for most people, they just walk away with a really bad knee or bad back because they're pushing too hard. Yeah. So we have to be aware of where we are in the path, what we can take. And sure, you can experiment of sitting a bit longer, doing without sleep from time to time, or fasting from time to time. But no, are these practices yielding results? Are these practices making you feel more calmer, more still, more happy in a different sense? If it's not, then it's also good to change the practice. To always incline to what works. Practice what works. And sometimes in the Dhamma, it is different from worldly stuff. But it doesn't mean you can throw out the logic as well. That doing things that makes you unhappy, but keep doing it because you feel that this is the way of Dhamma. This is because it's written in some book somewhere. So much of the practice is a personal thing. What may not work right now could work later down the road. And what didn't work a couple of years ago may work now. So it's always, the flexibility, always the openness to experiment, to see what works in your practice. Yes, it sounds crazy that you get up at 3:30, you go into a room, 4 o'clock, do a bit of chanting, and then they turn the light off, and then you're supposed to be awake, aware and alert. How's that going to happen? But it does. Once the mind settles down, you can be awake, aware, alert, happy and carefree in a completely dark room with nothing to stimulate you. And that's the magic of the Dhamma. That if you have the faith to put into practice and the mind become more still, it's an amazing feeling, amazing sense of being that is beyond the world in that way. that something sense pleasure cannot give, a sense of contentment, of peace within yourself, that we all have the potential to touch, to experience, and to be with. But it does take courage, it takes persistence, it takes faith and confidence in the Buddha's teaching. So as we continue the practice tonight of sitting later, longer, deeper into the night, let's offer these for your reflection, that the practice may seem contradictory, may seem theological, but it's for each and every one of us to put it into practice and see whether it works for yourself or not. And like I said, hopefully we are inspired by reading the biographies of the different masters. We are inspired by reading the life of the Buddha, that he did these things, did the strange things, the ascetic things. And, when there is the result, the fruits of the practice, there's an immense sense of happiness, sense of well-being, but also an immense sense of compassion and wisdom to share to the world. So I offer that for your reflection tonight.